Уважаемые господа,
Ladies and gentlemen,
только что
we've
завершилась
just
наша беседа с
completed
президентом Франции
our
Николя Саркози.
negotiations with President
По вполне
Sarkozy
очевидным
of
причинам она
France.
была
For
посвящена
obvious
одной
reasons,
теме
it was focused on one
трагическим событиям
topic,
в Южной
the
Осетии.
tragic developments in
И
South
мы
Ossetia.
обменивались информацией,
We've had
интенсивно
an
обменивались с
exchange, an
президентом
active exchange
последние
of
2 дня.
information over the past 2 days.
Прежде чем я скажу
Before
об результатах,
I
которые
comment
мы
the
сегодня достигли,
outcomes achieved
я
today,
хотел бы специально
I'd
отметить,
like
что
to
встреча
make a special
происходит в
reference
условиях
to the fact
нового
that
статус-кво.
we're having this meeting in the
Как вам
conditions
известно,
of a new
сегодня
status quo.
в
As
связи
you
с
might know,
достижением цели
today,
операции по
since
принуждению к
the
миру,
purposes of the operation of
я
peace
принял
enforcement
решение о
have
ее
been
завершении.
achieved, I made the decision to complete
И
it.
мы благодарны
And we
нашему
are
партнеру,
grateful to our partner,
моему коллеге
to my
Николя
colleague,
Саркози за то, что он немедленно
President
включился в поиски
Sarkozy,
решения.
for having immediately
Теперь,
joined the efforts to find a solution to the problems. And now, particularly about the results achieved, I'm now going to read out the principles we have agreed upon. I'll read them out in Russian first, and then my colleague will do the same in French. President of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, and President of France, Nicolas Sarkozy, support the following principles of settlement of conflicts and urge the two sides to put their signatures to those principles. 6 principles as follows: non-use of force. Second, to cease all hostilities. Third, free access for humanitarian aid. Fourth, the armed forces of Georgia are to be returned to the positions of their permanent dislocation. Fifth, the armed forces of Russia are withdrawn to the positions that they took at the beginning, before the beginning of hostilities. Until international mechanism and machinery is established, Russian peacekeepers are assuming additional security measures. And the sixth one, the beginning of international discussion of the issue of future status of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and ways to ensure their solid security. I believe that those are good principles to guide us in solving the problems and finding the way out of this tragic situation that have emerged. And those principles can be used by both Georgia and South Ossetia. The President of France will leave Moscow for Tbilisi in order to pass over those principles to the Georgian side. And if Georgia is, in fact, ready to sign those and is going to withdraw its troops to the original position and is going to fulfill those principles, then the way is going to be paved to a gradual normalization of the situation in South Ossetia. Now it's up to Tbilisi to decide. That's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. Mr. President, I'm passing the word to you.
Mr. President, I'm very happy about the numerous hours of discussion we've had yesterday, the day before yesterday, and today. I would like to say that for all of those who are attached to peace, this is a good news that you've just announced of a temporary ceasefire. Besides, we have had very free and frank discussions on a situation which today generates a lot of suffering on all sides and a lot of dramatic events. The paper presented by President Medvedev, therefore, is the summary, the conclusion of all of these hours of discussion between the Russians and the French, represented by Bernard Kouchner and by myself. First principle, the commitment not to use force. By the way, we didn't intend to settle everything during our discussion. We wanted to find the means of a short paper allowing to find an agreement. Second principle, the final cessation of hostilities. We are now in a temporary cessation of hostilities. It can become a final if tonight with Bernard Kouchner the Georgian agree to that. Third principle, free access to humanitarian aid. There are a lot of refugees that need help. Fourth principle, return of the Georgian military forces to their usual places. Fifth principle, the Russian forces will go back to the lines where they were before the hostilities started. And while we have an international mechanism, the Russian peacekeeping forces, in the context of the OSCE, present in southern Ossetia, there will be additional forces of security. We'll talk about them with Mr. Saakashvili. Until confidence is not back between the various parties, Abkhaz, Ossetian and Georgian. Number 6, opening of international discussion on the future status of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Let me recall you that the situation in these regions has given rise to a lot of discussion in the Security Council since 1992. The least we can say is that the durable solution was not found yet. If I look at the crisis we're going through, I'd like to say also before, in front of the President Medvedev, that there's a commitment, a Russian commitment to guarantee sovereignty and to respect Georgia's sovereignty. Since this point is unambiguous, this is a very important point. With Bernard Kouchner, we're leaving right away to Tbilisi to continue the discussion. Tomorrow, Bernard Kouchner will bring together all ministers of foreign affairs, European ministers of foreign affairs, to tell them about the mission we have carried. I have to say, besides, that even before I go to I came today, yesterday evening, I had talks with Angela Merkel. By the way, there is a perfect agreement between the German Chancellor and myself. I also talked to Mr. Berlusconi. My colleagues have spoken also to the colleagues of Mr. Brown and José Luis Zapatero. Besides, I also talked with the Polish president at length, with the Ukrainian president, whom we will meet in Tbilisi since he's there. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the result of the very in-depth discussions we have had. We are not at peace yet, but we are at the stage of a temporary cessation of hostilities, which is certainly significant progress. There's still a lot of work to do. The night is long. What we want is to have the best possible result.
I have a question to the Russian President. Why the decision on ceasefire has been announced today, though Saakashvili had been talking for 2 days that Georgia was ready for this, and what was the condition necessary for Russia to stop fire, to ceasefire, and how can you explain the fact that over the past 2 days the Georgian president have been making his announcement about the beginning of hostilities and other announcements at the background of the European Union, though, as we perfectly know, this country is no member of the European Union? Why today? I've answered this question already, and I'm ready to reiterate it to this audience as well. The point is that the peace enforcement operation on Georgian authorities that we have been working on through our peacekeepers has brought its results, and therefore we are completing it. And it is necessary to do this today and not yesterday and not tomorrow. Therefore, an interim decision has been taken to provide ceasefire until full settlement to the problem is found in the spirit of the principles that I have just spelled out, and more importantly, we have achieved the purposes we had. Which purposes am I talking about? First, we have ensured protection of Russian citizens living in South Ossetia. Secondly, we have restored status quo. We have protected the law and order in the spirit of international agreements signed in 1992 and later based on which settlement is ensured in the area. That is, we have fully implemented the mandate of the peacekeeping contingent in an extended manner, unfortunately, because we had to do it. As to the announcements made by the Georgian president that for 2 days ceasefire has been ensured, those are lies. Georgian troops were shooting against peacekeepers. Unfortunately, we lost several people yesterday. This was done with the use of artillery, weapons and firearms, which means that there has been no ceasefire on the Georgian side. Well, those crazy people are very particular, because when they smell blood, it is impossible to stop them. Therefore, you need to make a surgery to stop this problem. And today, all the conditions necessary for the fulfillment of our mission have been provided, which has allowed us to go back to the discussion of the main issue, the peace issue, based on the principles that we have just spelled out with my colleague, President Sarkozy.
I confirm Georgia is not part of the European Union. I can't forbid a head of state or a citizen from showing the European flag.
Most importantly, it should not undermine the authority of the European Union.
Mrs. Lorraine Millot. Lorraine Millot from Libération. Mr. Sarkozy, why is it that the principle of territorial integrity, not in the principle, does it mean that this principle is no longer valid for you? As for Mr. Medvedev, do you still accept Georgia's territorial integrity? Can you still imagine Ossetian living in Georgia after what has happened? Madam, what we need is to get out of a crisis. And to get out of a crisis, the different parties at war have to stop fighting. We are in an emergency situation. Our objective was not to settle all of the problems. I observe, by the way, that the problem of Abkhazia, South Ossetia and Caucasus in general have given rise to a lot of resolution. Georgia is an independent country. It is a sovereign country. And I think that this formula is much wider, broader than the mere formula of integrity, the principle of sovereignty. I would like to add that before the crisis, there were international forces under an international mandate in those two territories. I haven't invented them. I haven't challenged them. And if there were quote-unquote peace forces, it's because there were problems to solve. We have seen the essence of these problems in the last few days. Those problems existed before the crisis. If there was no problem, if there hadn't been a problem, there wouldn't have been international forces at that moment, in those regions, at that very moment. So there are two solutions. Either we try and settle everything and we'll settle nothing in the end. Or we try and go back to peace, have a dialogue to find final and durable, sustainable solution. This is what we're trying to do. Of course, words have a meaning. I know that, Madam. Sovereignty and independence. These are the words I have chosen to use. Because if you want to have a mediation, you have to try and bring the different parties closer to one another in a different position. And this is my role as President of the EU. I'm sure that there are many people who have final ideas on the manner of solving the problem. But there's the refugee issue, the Georgians, the Russians speaking in these two areas. Clearly, we haven't solved the problem today, and nobody thought we would, by the way. What we're trying to do is to try and end the suffering, end the casualties, put an end to the casualties, the killing, and we have decided to agree on the principle of the respect of sovereignty. Georgia is an independent country. And this was confirmed to me by Medvedev. The Russians have no intention of staying in Georgia. This is why I've used this term and not another one. Of course, you know the issue, Madam. There are other issues that will come up after. I know that. This six-point text, of course, is not comprehensive. It's not a final settlement to the problem. There are parties, of course, involved. But this was not the time today to treat with all of the issues. A number of international negotiations will start and take place. And this is my frank answer. This is exactly what I think. And this does not mean at all that I'm giving in. I just want to push people to dialogue and understand whether in an area of the world where the situation is not simple and has been complicated for a long time because populations are different population. So we're trying to appease the situation and go towards peace. It's not at all, I'm not giving it, but I try to be clear about the situation. If it was simple, everybody would know it. I'm saying it for Libération. It's not a lack of courage on my part. It's not. Not everything is a question of courage. It's also a question of reflection. And allow me this little comment, Madam. It's easier to write an article than to bring people who are in a situation of war. Don't be upset, but this is something I wanted to say. Thank you.
Что такое суверенитет?
Well, what is
Это верховенство
sovereignty?
центральной власти.
That is supremacy of
Признает ли
central
Россия
power.
суверенитет
Does Russia
Грузии?
recognize Georgian
Безусловно,
sovereignty?
признает.
Undoubtedly, we do.
Равно как и независимость грузинской
Just
власти
like independence of
каких-либо
Georgian
других
authorities
властей.
from any
Но
any
это не
other
значит, что
leaderships.
суверенное
But that does
государство
not mean that a sovereign state
имеет возможность делать все, что ему
should
заблагорассудится.
have possibility
Даже
to
суверенные
do whatever it
государства
might think of.
должны
Even sovereign
отвечать за
states
свои действия.
must be responsible for their actions.
Теперь в отношении территориальной
Now, as
целостности.
regards territorial integrity,
Территориальная целостность
territorial
– это отдельное
integrity
понятие.
is a separate
И
notion.
если суверенитет
And
основан на
if
воле народа,
sovereignty is
и на
based
Конституции,
on the will
то
of
территориальная
people and the
целостность,
Constitution,
как правило,
in that case, territorial
показывает реальное
integrity
состояние дел.
is a demonstration
несмотря на то,
of
что
the
на
true
бумаге всё
state of
будет
affairs.
И может смотреться хорошо, в
But
жизни все
in some
бывает гораздо
cases,
сложнее.
when things look very good on paper,
Вопрос
in
территориальной
true life the
целостности
situation is
–
very
это
different.
очень сложный
The
вопрос,
issue of territorial
который не
integrity
решается ни на митингах,
is a very complicated
даже
matter
в
that cannot
парламентах
be
и
solved
на встречах
at
лидеров.
manifestations or in parliament
Это
or
желание
at summits.
людей жить в
Territorial
одном государстве.
integrity
И здесь вы
means
правильно
that
задали
people
вопрос,
wish
могут
to
ли
live in
и
the same
хотят ли
state.
осетины
And your
и
question
абхазы
is perfectly correct.
жить в
Do
составе Грузии.
Ossetians, Abkhazians and Georgians
Этот вопрос
want to
нужно
share
задать им
a
самим.
state? That is the question that they
И они дадут на него
themselves
свой
should be asked,
недвусмысленный ответ.
and they will
На
unambiguously
этот вопрос
answer.
не должна отвечать
It
ни
is
Россия,
not up to Russia
ни
to
какие-либо
answer
другие
it,
государства.
nor
Это
any
должно
other
происходить в
states.
строгом
can
соответствии
do
с нормами
that.
международного права.
It should be carried out in
Хотя и
full
международное право за
compliance
последние
with
годы
norms of
изобилует
international law.
очень сложными
Although
примерами
in the past
самоопределения
years we've seen
народов и возникновения
many
новых государств
very
на карте.
ambiguous
Давайте
examples
вспомним пример Косово.
of appearance of new states on the map. Let's
Поэтому
look at
это тот
Kosovo
вопрос,
example.
на который должны ответить
Therefore,
осетины и
this is
абхазы.
the question that
С учетом
Ossetians and Abkhazians are
истории,
to answer, bearing in mind
принимая во
their
внимание и то,
history,
что случилось в последние дни.
bearing in mind the developments of the past few days. Alexandra Kosharnitskaya, Russia Today. Question to both presidents.
На ваш взгляд, была ли возможность у России
Do you
как-то по-другому
think
отреагировать на агрессию
Russia
Грузию,
could have
Грузии,
reacted
по
differently
отношению к Южной Осетии?
to Georgian
Еще
aggression
поднимались
in
ли
South
во
Ossetia?
время переговоров, поднималась
And
ли во время
second question,
переговоров такая тема,
did
как
you
этнические
discuss
чистки?
the issue of ethnic cleansings?
Если бы у России была другая возможность
Had
отреагировать
Russia
на
had
агрессию Грузии
a
в
different
отношении Южной Осетии, мы бы так и поступили.
possibility to react differently
Никакой другой
to Georgian
возможности
aggression,
отреагировать не было.
we would have done it.
Когда
But
убивают
we had no
несколько
other
тысяч
option.
граждан,
When a few
государство
thousand
должно реагировать
citizens
адекватно.
are killed,
Когда нарушают
a state
международное
has to
право,
react adequately. When
государство и всё
international
международное
law is
сообщество
violated,
тоже должно
a state and
реагировать
the entire
абсолютно
international
адекватно.
community should
А не так вяло,
also
как, к сожалению,
react.
происходит зачастую в нашей жизни.
And it should be an adequate
Поэтому
reaction,
никаких
not,
других
the way it
возможностей
sometimes
отвечать у нас
happens
не
in our
было.
lives. Therefore,
И история
there could have
последних
been
5
no
дней
other
показала,
reaction,
что этот
and the
ответ
record
был
of the past
наиболее
5 days
эффективным
has
и
shown
наиболее
that
последовательным.
our response was
Если бы мы не
correct.
сделали этого, количество смертей
Had we not
было
done
бы
what we
многократно
did,
больше.
losses would have been much
Что
higher.
касается этнических чисток,
As regards ethnic
то, естественно,
cleansings,
эта проблема существует.
the problem exists,
И
it
мы
is
со
reality,
всей твердостью этот вопрос
and
поднимали и
we've
будем
raised
поднимать перед теми, кто за них
the
отвечает.
issue and will
Хотя
continue
отдельные наши партнеры
bringing it up with
почему-то
all
просят этот вопрос не поднимать
those in charge, though some of
том
our
числе
partners
и в конфиденциальных
insist then we
разговорах.
set it aside, and they insist on it in
Стесняются, наверное.
confidential conversations. They're probably
Это
shy.
вопрос, который квалифицируется в международном праве как преступление.
But this matter is
Равно как
qualified
и
by
убийство тысяч
international law
граждан
as
носит
crime,
наименование геноцид.
and murder of thousands of civilians is called genocide. This is the only applicable term. There can be no other. Moreover, and we've talked about that already, it's a bizarre situation when one personality who's taken lives of thousands of civilians is characterized as a bastard, as a terrorist, and other in the same situation is called sovereign president of a sovereign state. Double standards are unacceptable, and we should be guided by that understanding in our political practice.
You see, in fact, that the problems are very recent, and any question can give rise to the expression of suffering. France thinks war is never a good solution. France thinks it for the Georgians, when they took some initiatives, and France said it to the Russians. It is not a good solution. War is not a good solution. To ensure that there had been suffering on both sides, at the request of Mr. Medvedev, I've asked Mr. Kushner to go to Ossetia, North Ossetia, and to go to South Ossetia, because there was suffering on both sides, to see all of the refugees. The day before yesterday, Medvedev asked me to send the French Minister of Foreign Affairs to go on both sides to do the reality of things. On the question of ethnic cleansing, genocide, there are international bodies for that. There is an international criminal court. If a given part to the conflict wants to have a person before those bodies, it is their right. That's why we have wanted this international order. Inquiries will be carried out, and the truth will come out. Each will have to respond of their initiative, and no country, it is good for any country to want this question to be settled, but there is an international statute, there are international rules. The International Criminal Court was done also for that, was set up for that purpose. Maybe one last question?
Arnaud Parmentier, Journal Le
Monde, for Mr. Sarkozy. Are you going to convene a European Council? Do you think that you're going to have the support of your partners? We know that the Baltic, the Polish or on Mr. Saakashvili's side, is it legitimate to have a European force of peacekeeping that would support the Russian soldiers that are already in the two countries? And for Mr. Medvedev, would you accept the peacekeeping force, the Russian keeping force, to be complemented with a European force? Mr. Le Parmentier, it is too early to decide whether it is necessary to have a European Council at the level of heads of states of government. I guess this is your question. Even though we haven't yet, I haven't yet been present the result of our talks to the Georgians. My concern as President of the EU is to maintain Europe's unity. Everybody can have different positions on the basis of their history. Having an agreement for 27 countries is not simple, but for the time being, I think that in the French initiative, I think I have everybody's support. The Polish the President is in Tbilisi. I'm going myself, and of course there are everybody's sensitivities, which you know perfectly in the present state of things. This European unity is something I want to maintain, do everything for that. We'll see how the European Council of Foreign Affairs goes tomorrow, how the evening goes with the Georgians, and on the basis of that, it will always be time to decide whether it's a good idea to have a council. Mr. Le Parmentier, I didn't want to haste that meeting, that decision. Some member state had asked it to me. I thought I needed time to go there. This is what Mr. Kouchner did, to talk with the Russian authorities. This is what I'm doing today, and the Georgian authorities. Could Europe be involved in a European peacekeeping force? Europe is available, is ready to do that, of course. This conflict is occurring near Europe, at the close borders. The question of relations between Russia and Europe is a strategic issue. We want to have good relations with Russia. We even want to consolidate these relationships. Of course, we are quite available to envisage that participation if the different actors want it.
Я могу дополнить буквально 2 слова на эту тему.
I'd like to add just a few words.
Prочность миропорядка.
A solid world order is based on a system of international law, and the better we remember it, the easier it will be for us to live, and less problem we'll have. International agreements, according to which peacekeepers operate, were formulated back in 1992, and they are strengthened by later international instruments. They are still there, and they are still valid, and our peacekeepers continue fulfilling their functions, and they will do so in future, precisely because they are the key factor of security in the Caucasus. That's the way it has been and will be. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. Thank you.